I decided to write down my thoughts in real time while playing Earthdawn, turning this into an ongoing first impressions experience. I want to see how my opinions change the longer I spend with each game in the series, so I'll be checking in at the 1 hour, 5 hour, 10 hour, 20 hour marks, and then again at the end. 20 hours I may not need for some games. The game I'm playing is Earthdawn on PS4. I don't have many expectations going in. It looks incredibly fast paced and I really like the art style. And honestly, I almost never hear anyone talk about it, which is exactly why I wanted to give it a shot. While I'm playing and sharing my thoughts, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't played Earthdawn yet and want to go in completely blind, consider this your spoiler warning. If you have played it, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. With that out of the way, I'll check back in once I hit the 1 hour mark. I've just hit the 1 hour mark in Earthdawn, and this game throws a lot at you right from the start. There's so much information early on that instead of breaking things down by systems, I'm going to go over everything in the order that I experienced them. We open up with the setting, which is what happened leading up to the events of this game. In the year 2020, Earth was invaded by an unknown hostile organism. The people of Earth referred to them as EBE. As the invasion continued, nation after nation fell to the constant onslaught of the attack, leaving 70% of the United States under the control of EBE. Modern weapons couldn't match the power of the EBE, leaving humanity helpless and on the brink of extinction. Humanity wasn't going to go down without a fight, and they discovered that they could fuse the body tissue of an EBE with metal and create a superclass of bioarmor. This required intricate surgery to harness the power of the new weapon, but they were successful and created an elite force known as the ANTI troops, or ANTI for short. With this new weapon, they were finally able to take down a Baron-class EBE for the very first time. This ended up giving hope that humanity could fight back and survive. With the foundation set for the game, we can talk about our character. We're a new recruit for the ANTI troops, and the game allows us to create our own character in a rather limited customization menu. We can pick if we want to be male or female, what our character looks like with 8 options for both the female and male characters. Then we can decide what voice to give our character out of the 4 available, and then the controls we want to use for the game. I left the controls on default because I had never played the game, so I didn't really know one way or the other. After picking our character, we're thrown into the current story for the game and meet the United Earth Commander-in-Chief, Jeffrey Harvey, a pale man with every medal known to man on his jacket. Like seriously, look at all these things. In this cutscene, he basically tells us that we're launching a counterattack, and this operation is called New Dawn. Our goal is to go after the EBE nest on our way to the energy transport plant hidden inside the Alaska nest, and to eventually get to the end goal of evading the EBE home world. He tells us that we're going to start in New York, move to Wisconsin, make our way through Canada, and finally making our way to Alaska. In New York, our goal is to make it to the heart of the nest and take out the Baron-class EBE known as Cerberus, who has taken over Grand Terminal. Now that we've gotten all that out of the way, we're thrown into the first mission of the game and the tutorial. I'm going to go over all the controls as we unlock them, but the first thing we learn to do is move with the left analog stick. Then we can jump with the X button, and by hitting the X button again, we can double jump. And then a pretty neat feature is that if we're moving or jumping, we can hit the R2 button and it will give us a boost. We have a total of 5 boosts, which allows for us to move quickly, and this can even help by allowing us to get behind our enemies or avoiding attacks altogether. If you're moving and pressing the X button, you can slide, which is another way to get behind a group of enemies. I haven't really used the slide feature though. If you don't know, Earthdawn is a side-scrolling beat-em-up RPG. We can move from area to area fighting enemies, gaining experience, getting crafting materials, collecting crystals that we use for fuel to craft weapons and armor, and we can also find gas cells which will allow us to increase our capacity. I'll go into that a bit more in a second, but I want to finish the gameplay portion first. When we encounter enemies, we get locked into a small area. This requires us to defeat all of the threat before we can move forward or back on the map. We have 2 ways to attack. With the square button, we can use our sword. We can hack and slash by spamming the button. There are combos we can input that do more damage, but we need to unlock them before we can get any fancy ones. So for now, we have the basic attack, jumping attack, and down attack. If we point the analog in a direction while close enough to an enemy, we can punch them and throw them, giving us some extra space while in combat. The sword isn't the only thing we have to attack with though, we can also carry a gun. some sort of assault rifle to start out with. We can shoot the gun with the triangle button, and this allows us to stay away from the enemies the best we can. The gun is weak for damage, but does well against shields that the enemies will eventually get. If you look at the top left of the screen, it will show us what level our character currently is. The blue bar is our health meter. The meter underneath that doesn't do anything yet, so ignore that for now. We have our boost meter and how many we have, indicated by the arrow icons, and the two swords underneath that is how many continues we get for that mission. So as long as we have a continue and we lose all of our health, we can just respawn. This game does healing a bit different than most. When an enemy is close to death, we can perform a fatal blow by getting close to the enemy and hitting the square button. If we can perform this correctly, we get a little bit of health back, so fatal blows are going to end up being my best friend in the game, because I have only been taking unnecessary damage so far. These fatal blows are both really cool and extremely brutal actions, and I can say that I'm actually here for this. Some enemies have a break gauge. This is a bar underneath their health, and once we get it to about halfway, the enemy will get stunned and won't move, and that will give us a chance to go in and attack a bunch, without taking hits ourselves. This gauge is broken with the gun, so the gameplay loop ends up being a balance of melee and ranged attacks. The last thing I'd mention before moving past combat for now is that each enemy gives us experience so that we can level up, and that will make us stronger by increasing our stats, but I'll go over the stats here in a bit. After each encounter, we're given an evaluation for our combat. The game will take these factors and score us and then give us a rank. I have no idea how this is calculated, but the rank matters at the end of each mission and can determine what extra rewards we can get. The only thing I do know is that taking damage from enemies will lower our rank a ton. At the end of the first mission of the game, we're attacked by our first boss, a giant Baron class EBE known as Cerberus. This thing is crazy looking with arms that look like animal heads, each of them doing different abilities while jumping around. I went into this fight with low health and ended up dying one time, but I was able to overcome this beast. I don't know if all bosses are going to be this tanky, but they have so much health, and you really got to learn the attack patterns if you want to not take a ton of damage. But since this is the first boss, he ended up not doing a ton of damage per hit, so I was able to figure out how to take it down. I usually wait until the end of the segment to mention this, but I've been having a little bit of a tough time getting used to the controls in this game. I feel like I almost always boost in a diagonal angle, and I find myself facing away from the enemies more than facing them. I'm assuming I'll get more used to it as I play, but for right now, this is the part of the game that I don't like that much. The attacks are cool and stuff, but sometimes I take damage because I'm just facing the wrong way. Let me know if you've played this game before and found the same thing happening to you. Anyways, we take down this boss and we can move on in the game. After the mission is complete, we get a mission result screen, and it adds up all the things you're doing during the mission and your combat scores, and then determines the rank you get for the overall mission. Considering this was my first one, I still ended up with an A score, which isn't too bad if I say so myself, and we even got some new skills, which was attack +1. Harvey tells us that we took control of New York, but we need to use the underground network system to make our way to Wisconsin. So that's what we're going to work on heading forward. But for now, we need to make sure we're in top shape. Then we meet another new person, Major Eddie Wilson, the anti-troops commanding officer. He doesn't tell us much other than if we want better weapons and armor, we're going to need to make them ourselves. Then for some reason, he makes a record of the war in some sort of video camera recording. It's nothing new in the first one, besides telling us that morale was better since we were able to take over New York. Once done, we finally arrive at the base menu. In this menu, we can take on our next mission, upgrade our weapons and armor, modify our skills, and determine what type of soldier we want to be, as well as filling out the journal for the story of the game. Under weapon construction, we meet Mijima, the General Technical Director. He's basically just here to help us craft weapons and armor. That's, for the most part, it. This section ends up being pretty standard stuff. Under weapon crafting, we can see weapons that we have research for that we can craft now. We have to use the materials we pick up and the energy we get from killing enemies during the missions to craft these weapons. There are a bunch of things that we can craft, like new swords, guns, armor, and even just cosmetic things like glasses. More customization is always a good thing. Each item that we craft and use will affect our stats, which are broken down over 6 categories. Health, or our hit points. Attack, which increases our damage dealt. Defense, which reduces the damage received. Technique, which boosts our damage to enemy break gauges. Luck, which will help with adding status effects. Critical hits and item drops. and mind power, which affects the amount of damage we do when performing special attacks. Taking the stats that we get from the weapon and armor we're equipped with combines with the same stats of our actual character, which increase by leveling up. Weapon enhancement lets us use other materials that aren't being used for crafting, and they can level up our weapons and armor, making them stronger. It takes a lot of common materials to increase levels, and the rare materials give more experience. So the hunt for rare materials is better because they will give you more experience. The dismantle weapon lets us take old gear we're not using and convert it into energy, and dismantling materials lets us do the same thing, but with materials. I was able to craft a new sword on my first go that did a little more damage, but not much else. Next on the base menu, we go to the customized skill menu, where we meet another new person, Cecilia Crawford, a medical researcher that doesn't care about what's going on besides how far we can push the bio armor we're wearing. The skill settings is where all of this kind of gets a bit crazy. On the main screen, we can pick what type of soldier we want to be. Balance, which will keep our stats about even. Attack specialist increases our damage but lowers our defense. Defense specialist will increase our defense but lower our attack. Technical specialist will increase our technique and luck but lowers our attack, defense, and health. And lastly, ability limit, which lowers everything but increases our special attack and abilities. I have no idea what the use of that one would be. On the left side of the screen, we can see that we have 5 skill slots, which are basically 5 different builds, and we have a skill capacity. This determines how many skills we can equip, each skill costing 1 point. But there is like a million of them. At least that's what it feels like. We increase this skill capacity by collecting those gas cells in each level, so it ends up being extremely important while playing to collect as many of them as possible. Once we move into the skill tree, there are a ton of options, and we can activate them by clicking on them. Some skills are attacks that we can perform, and some are just stat boost. The stat boost skills can be attached to one of the action skills to increase that skill's stats. I know that sounds complicated, and I hope all that makes sense. It's just kind of hard to describe. Besides the one stat skill that we unlock for +1 attack, we don't have anything else we can do right now, and I attach that to our basic sword attack. After spending too much time in the base menu, I finally made my way into the mission select screen. This shows us all the available missions, even letting us go back to old missions to grind if we need to, and I honestly think I'm going to need to grind a bunch in this game. At least I feel that way right now. Anyways, the only new mission we have right now is Advance into Darkness. This mission just has us clearing out EBE from the underground network so that we can establish an investigation portal. Really, the only new thing in this mission to talk about is that we can open up the map and look at all the areas we've been to in New York, which I think this can be helpful when navigating through the game. We did run into new enemies here that are sharks that can swim around in concrete, I guess. They end up being kind of annoying to fight because you can't hit them unless they jump out of the cement and then you catch them in the air. At the end of this mission, we're attacked by an enemy called the Slayer. It's not a boss, but it's a fast enemy that has a shield, and I think that my game broke or something because this area to fight him in was super tiny. But I guess it could have just been how the fight was supposed to be. I took it out without much of an issue and completed the mission, even getting an S rank overall. Harvey tells us that we're on standby for now, and we're returned to the base menu where we have 20 hours to upgrade or tackle side missions for extra material and experience. These side missions can be a bunch of things: finding an item and returning it, killing a specific amount of enemy types, or just clearing out an area. It's basic stuff, but I feel like it's needed to keep up with the enemies in the main missions. Each side mission we attempt takes a large chunk of time from that 20-hour pool, usually a couple at a time. We don't even have to complete the mission. If we die while attempting it, then it still takes away time. So I guess I'll need to be mindful of that heading into the future. Out of all the side missions I completed in the first hour, the only thing to note is that I ran into an elite enemy, which is stupidly strong, and I was never able to beat it. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do because it basically one-shots me. This one is called Scorpion, and it poisoned me and took all my health away basically in an instant. I don't know if this is one of those cases where I need to come back later or something, but I couldn't even do any real damage to it. I'll come back at some point and try that mission again, but for now, I'm not too worried about it. At the end of the first hour of playing, I hit level 5 for my character, and I ended up getting to the end of the 20 hours, so when I come back, I'll be able to attempt the next mission. At the end of the timer, we get another recording from Eddie Wilson telling us that his 2 new recruits, Johnny and Mark, won't be coming home, and that's when his true hatred for the EBE went into full effect. I think these recordings are old, like he's recorded these in the past or something. At least that's what it kind of feels like. I reached 1 hour in Earthdawn, and so far, I like the game. I think it does a lot of cool things, but there's just so much to everything at the moment, and I actually felt a bit overwhelmed at times. I like how fast the combat is, I'm just not very good at it. I enjoy crafting weapons and skills, but I have no idea what the best build is, and what I should be working towards in the future. Right now, I'm just adding attack to everything. I guess I'm just trying to make a strength build like I do in Souls games. I'll just wait and see how that goes for me in the future. I really want to continue playing the game, so Earthdawn has that going for it so far. But I'll check back in at the 5-hour mark, and I'll see how I'm feeling and what new things we've uncovered then. I made it to the 5-hour mark, and again, I'm going to cover things as I unlock them and go over the story sections in order. So I'll be jumping around a bit during this section. First thing to note, before I really got anything new, I did a bunch of side missions which had us doing a bunch of random things. Some side missions had us killing a specific amount of enemy, a certain type of enemy, getting to a location in the map in a certain amount of time, defeating a specific amount of enemies in a limited amount of time, finding materials, or finding a key item and returning it to the main base area without dying. I don't mind the side missions because I feel like there's enough variety to keep them fresh. And honestly, they don't take that long and really help when leveling our character. The materials we get from these missions help us craft new weapons and armor, and we get new skills along the way that make the game much easier. Anyways, the first new main mission to talk about is launching a counterattack against a brand new boss enemy known as Rockfist. He's a Baronet class EBE, so he's more difficult than the first boss fight we had with Cerberus. We have to make our way pretty far through the underground network to reach him, and he's a giant stone golem thing. But before I get into the fight, I want to talk about the brand new ability we unlocked and what the Major has to say. The Major tells us that we need to get to this Baronet class EBE, but there are these red crystal walls in the way, and we haven't had much luck in breaking them to clear the path. But Cecilia tells us that we can use a super mechanism that will allow us to temporarily exceed the limits of the human body, but the anti-troops are the only ones that can achieve it. This super mechanism is another piece of equipment that we can craft and upgrade, each one doing something different based on the way we want to play. The first one we get is called the Claw, and allows us to bring out this massive red arm that attacks enemies around us. Do you remember the meter on our HUD that didn't do anything before? Now it fills up by fighting EBE, and once it hits 50%, we can launch the Exceed unit or super mechanism attack. When Exceed is active, it temporarily increases our stats and allows us to perform a powerful Exceed attack. Once activated, it will take away from the meters, so there is a balance of when you should use this Exceed and when it's best to save it. When coming to a crystal wall, we just have to hit the square button to perform the action and break the wall. That's about it. It doesn't require any type of movement or button presses, just hit square and wait for the animation. Now that we've covered all of that, let's move on to the fight with Rockfist. Like I mentioned before, he's a massive metal-coated rock golem thing. He's pretty slow when attacking, but hits hard, and we don't really do too much damage to him. At least with the current weapon and level that I had. I won't even lie, the first time I fought him I lost. Even with 3 continues I lost. I just wasn't doing enough damage to him. My sword was doing a measly 11 to 15 damage, and my gun was doing only 9 towards breaking his shield. So I had to go back and grind some side missions to get my weapons and stats up to par, so I could finally take him out. This fight isn't that difficult in terms of dodging his attacks, because you can spot what he's going to do pretty easily. He has a hammer fist attack where he slams his fist on the ground. This attack cannot be blocked. He does an attack where he spins in place doing damage, he jumps up and slams down, and he has this charge punch that does an insane amount of damage, but it takes a few seconds to charge, so you just need to move away from him at the right moment. I think in my first fight with him, I was too focused on just trying to hit him instead of avoiding his attacks, and that's why I had so much trouble with him. So in my second attempt, I put way more effort into learning his strikes and getting out of the way. Once we get his health halfway down, he adds more attacks that are way more annoying when trying to avoid. He now slams his fist on the ground and causes these, I don't know, they're like static fire fissures that come out of the ground and they move to the edge of the screen. We just have to jump and boost into the air and we can avoid them. So they're bad if you get caught in them, but if you jump, they're not that bad. He also adds a red shield charge that pushes us away if he performs it. I think this was because once you get inside of his arms, he can't really do much to us, and it was the game's way of preventing us from cheesing out a win. I think that's a good move from the developer. The last major thing he adds is rockets that he shoots out of his hands, and they home in on us for at least a few seconds. If you have the right skills attached, we can use our sword and hit them back at him. We just have to time it correctly. Once I seen all of his attacks and leveled up to a point where I could actually do damage, I was able to beat him with no real issue. I also got an S rank for this fight this time around. I even beat a second form in a side mission later on that adds poison damage, but overall this was a pretty fun boss fight. After the fight, Harvey tells us that we achieved a path to Wisconsin and that they've been receiving reports about a Baron class EBE that evolved from Cerberus. This EBE built a nest inside of one of the power plants right at the center of Wisconsin and is affecting everything within its range. Our new goal is to drive out this EBE and set up our second base as we head north for the campaign. The plan for the next mission is to take down 3 nests outside of the power plant so that we can set up for an attack on this EBE. So no boss fight in the next main mission. Wilson tells us that another anti-troop was using the super mechanism and was consumed by the power and now has spiraled into perpetual violence. I still can't figure out what these recordings are. Some of them are current, but others seems like they took place in the past. But for the next mission, we just have to enter the area and defeat a bunch of waves of EBE soldiers. Honestly, this was extremely easy, and the only thing to mention is that there is a new enemy type called dung beetles. These things have giant saw blades on the front of them and go back and forth from each side of the screen, just trying to kill us. They do a good amount of damage, but getting knocked away is the real problem. After damaging them so much, we can break the saw blade and they start shooting missiles at us, which again we can knock back at them if we time it correctly. I wouldn't consider these enemies difficult, just more of a pain in large numbers. Each enemy is now getting a variation of the previous one, making them stronger and adding new attacks or statuses that they can apply to us. Stuff like burn, poison, paralysis, and freeze. After the mission, we're told that the power plant is too hot for normal soldiers to enter, so we're told that we need to go inside of the power plant and cut the power. This can cause a massive energy leak though, so it's very dangerous. We're also told that we have 50 hours of in-game time to train before we battle the boss EBE in this new area. I wanted to mention this at some point, so I'll do it now, but some of the materials we collect during each mission have special add-ons. When using these materials, we have a chance of putting that effect onto one of our swords or guns. I think it's just random or some odd percentage, I'm not too sure. Since I crafted a whole new sword, I was just upgrading it for damage mostly, but I got lucky and it added both a lightning attribute and the bonus effect of freezing enemies. This made the game so much easier for a little while, and I ended up using this sword for a bunch of side missions after this boss fight. So far, I've seen lightning, freeze, confuse, darkness, and burn. Now that we covered that, we have a bunch of time to tackle more side missions, so I did that and unlocked a bunch of skill capacity. This let us add new skills that we were unlocking during each mission, such as attack +2, defense +1, tech +1, guts that increases our attack when on low health, resistance to elements like burn, and a bunch of other things. I even gained the ability to slowly regen health over time. It's not very useful yet because of how slow it is, but I think this will be important later on. We even got new attack combos that really allow us to mow through enemies in the earlier areas. I started crafting different types of weapons, mainly guns, to see what I liked the most. I crafted a gun that shoots missiles, a sniper rifle that zooms in and does massive damage but shoots extremely slow, a bow that replaces our sword, which I didn't really like, and a shotgun looking gun that also spams out missiles. I really liked the sniper, but as the enemies got harder, it became pretty useless, so I switched to the shotgun missile launcher, which doesn't do that much, but it helps a lot with the shields. After all this leveling up and crafting, it was time to head into the next main mission called Mocking Laughter. This takes us into the power plant to take down the Baron EBE. I will say that this mission is mostly the same besides the new theme. This new theme allows for us to jump into these magnetic field wormhole things that causes us to stick to the ceiling of the area. Enemies will spawn on both the top and bottom of the screen now, and we can hit them no matter what side we're on. This makes fighting a bit more difficult because it switches the controls in the opposite direction. The first couple fights made me a bit confused, but I was able to quickly figure it out and continue to just beat down enemies. Our objective in this mission is to find switches that unlock hatch doors. We ended up having to search around a lot, even going through sections that just had us flying in one direction, collecting gas cells and avoiding traps that cause damage. I don't love the magnetic field thing, but the other parts of this area are actually really fun. Once we unlock the 2 doors, we enter the boss room called the reactor room. This room is a giant octagon where the top has us fighting on the ceiling and the bottom has us fighting on the floor. We have to take out a brand new boss called Lorelei. I have no idea what you would actually call her, but she reminds me of a ballerina that floats around with 2 sets of arms, and instead of a normal head, it's just what looks like a mouth. It's actually a bit disturbing. She doesn't have as many attacks as the last couple bosses, but she hits way harder. When we do damage to her, she drops cells that can also attack us. I'll break this into 2 parts. In the first part, I'm going to talk about the cells that drop from her. These cells can attack us by shooting these yellow balls at us. They don't do much damage, but if you get caught in a bunch of them, they can bring your health down in a hurry. The other thing that they do, and the reason that we need to kill them quickly, is that she can use them to restore health. Which means if we let them just hang out, she can almost fully heal back all the damage we just did to her. So my main focus ended up being them, and then I would just hit her when she got close to me. Now I'm going to move into the second part of this fight, which is Lorelei herself. She attacks with all 4 arms swinging around knives. These things hit so hard and fast that we really don't want to get caught in them. She also shoots out her own version of yellow balls, but there's like 20 times more of them than the cells, and then she can heal. That's everything that happens in phase 1. Just like the last boss, once we get her health about halfway down, she adds more attacks into her arsenal. Once we reach that point, she adds an electric shield that protects her from damage, but also links with her cells. Do you remember how I said that those cells don't seem like much? Well, they become even more of a problem here. When she has 4 or 5 of them out on the battlefield, she can link with each one of them, and that makes getting out of the way of all the beams extremely difficult. Oh, also these beams can paralyze us, making us move so slow. She also adds a single arm strike that really isn't anything to worry about. The one thing that is interesting in this fight, and the developers had to know it was going to take a bit to beat her, is that every time we lower her health into specific ranges, we get healed. So it's almost like a battle of who can stay healthy long enough to win. In the first battle with her, she did. I lost, but I did really well. I just ended up getting caught in her attacks one too many times. So I went back and crafted a new sword, the 86 Saber Kanemitsu. And I got lucky with this sword because I was able to add the darkness attribute and the bonus effect of confuse. This sword ended up not being all that much stronger than my leveled up sword, but that confusion was extremely helpful. I was also able to level it up so that it had 23 attack and 5 tech. Now it was on to do a couple more side missions, and then I was out for revenge. I made my way back through the main mission and back into the boss fight, but this time I was stronger and I understood the boss fight better. I wouldn't say I made this fight a cakewalk because I still used 2 lives during this fight, but I was able to beat her at the end. I love it when you finish a boss fight and perform that fatal blow attack because it's always over the top. This one has us slashing and slicing back and forth until we kill her. I even got an S rank on this battle, which I have no idea how I managed. After the fight, we're just praised for winning and told that they're moving all units to Wisconsin and repairing the power plant for a better base and to improve life in the area. We're now on standby and we can do more side missions to kill the time, which we will need because the other half of Wisconsin is way more challenging, dealing with the fire crater and enemies that cause burn. We got another Wilson recording, and he tells us that Alan, the soldier that lost control from using the super mechanism, recovered once we beat Lorelei. But he has no memories of his family and lover, but only remembers how to fight, and he's going back to the front lines. This seems a bit reckless from the United Earth, but I'm just a troop, so what say do I even have in all of this? With my free time, I crafted a life suit that gives us more health and defense, and then completed some side missions so that I could work on getting materials that helped against burn. Before the next mission, Harvey tells us that a Duke class EBE, which is stronger than anything we've faced up to this point, is our next target, and it's currently moving around deep within the Earth. The Duke class EBE is known as Leviathan, and Wilson tells us that this mission is one that we'll surely lose at the moment, and we need to be prepared for when it shows up again. We're tasked in this mission to clear out the cave it's created known as Hell's Toilet. We need this area under our control so that we can move on with Operation New Dawn. As I mentioned before, everything down here causes burn damage, so we're gonna need to be careful. But outside of that, there isn't much to talk about. We need to destroy new enemies called blockheads. They look like if you fused a tank with a mech. They don't move around at all besides facing whatever side we're on, and they only really slam their fist and shoot fire and missiles. The burn is the only problem, but overall they're pretty easy. We're underground again for this mission, so it's a lot of caves and breaking crystals to advance further down. I ended up doing a bit of grinding down here. Not on purpose, but just from looking around and collecting gas cells. I'm really not going to complain because I'm sure I'll need those levels of materials at some point. After destroying all the blockheads, we're attacked by a brand new Baron EBE known as Panther, which is exactly what you would expect. It's a panther that's made from metal. It loves spitting out fire and doing jumping somersaults, and it's really fast. Like faster than anything we fought up to this point. I was able to make pretty quick work of it and completed the mission. I'm so close to level 14, but that will be for when I check back in at the 10-hour mark. After the mission, we're told that after doing some research on Leviathan, that we need to stop it because it's working its way towards the core of the Earth. And if that happens, it will destroy the planet. I also noticed that when Wilson is talking to us, there is an error in the text. I think it should say we must stop Leviathan, but instead it just says we must Leviathan. I just thought this was kind of funny. He also tells us that we need to be ready to attack in 32 hours when he comes back to Hell's Toilet. That takes us to 5 hours, so let's recap my character development. We're level 13, we just unlocked being able to craft broadswords, bows, axes, more armor types, and a different super mechanism. We have a skill capacity of 107, which I don't even have enough skills to fill all of them at the moment. Our health is around 1500, and our best stat is the attack stat, sitting at 115. Not honestly all that bad. So how am I feeling about Earthdawn now? I still really like it. I think the side missions are short enough and worth the time to get better skills and materials that I don't really mind doing them. The change in environment has helped things stay fresh, and I think that the difficulty on normal is perfect. Every new major boss takes me about 2 attempts, 1 attempt to figure out the attack patterns and what works well against it, and the second attempt to actually defeat it. And I'm okay with that. I'm still having a great time playing the game, so I'm excited to continue moving forward and seeing if we get anything else new. The next sections might become a lot shorter if they don't add any new mechanics or any more new basic enemies, but I'll come back at the 10-hour mark and let you know what's new and how I'm feeling. I reached the 10-hour mark, and mostly it's just story stuff and leveling up weapons and skills, but we still got some new things along the way. I grinded out some side missions to increase my level over the 32 hours, and then headed into the lava cave. Nothing new here, just fire versions of the previous enemy types, but finally, all the way at the bottom of the cave, we finally ran into Leviathan, a large metal coated worm slash snake thing. I don't know if I was over leveled for this fight, but I beat it on my very first try, and it was actually pretty simple. He doesn't do much in the way of putting up a fight. He starts in an arena with 2 paths that go vertically through the top and bottom of the screen, and he'll change from side to side. Sometimes he'll fly across through the middle, but during this first phase, he doesn't really put up much of a fight. He tries to spit fire on us, pop up on either side of the tunnels and charge back, attempting to slam into us. He'll shoot a red laser across the screen, and he has a scream that pushes us back. It's nothing really that difficult. Once we get to the second phase of this fight, he uses both the front and back of his body, turning them into heads. They do the same attacks, but this time, they both stay in view on both sides of the tunnel and they will attack us. We have to avoid a lot more attacks, but the only new thing is the missiles that they shoot at us. I actually felt like this boss was a bit underwhelming in terms of boss fights in this game. Wasn't my favorite. We got an S rank on this mission, and Harvey tells us this is the first time humanity has ever defeated a Duke class EBE. So good for us for being part of that big moment. We're told we have 42 hours to get ready to resume Operation New Dawn, and we're given a bunch of side missions to take on. I want to point out here that most of this time in the game now is grinding, so this section might end up being a bit shorter than the last couple. But I will point out anything new that we come across. And of course that'll be in the order in which we encounter it. During this time, I crafted an axe that had the death attribute on it. I like how it just randomly kills enemies once we get death applied, but this also ends up tanking our scores for the combat sections. I think it's because we don't get to add up combos or do multiple attacks on enemies, they kind of just die. So I see both the advantages and disadvantages to the status. We can move through enemies without taking much damage using death, but we might miss out on skills for S ranking missions. So I guess it just depends on how much you want to bulk out your skill pool and material collection. We unlock the skill for dual weapons, which will let us take out 2 loadouts into each battle, meaning we can really add the effects or use them to take out specific enemy types. I really like that they added this in. After doing more side missions, I finally was strong enough to take down an elite EBE, and I completed that side mission. the one from before. And for how long it took, it wasn't worth the reward of Tech +1. I have no idea what the point of these enemies are. I was expecting getting a really cool reward, and instead I basically got nothing at this point in the game. At the end of those 42 hours, we're given our next main mission, moving into Canada and starting Phase 3 of Operation New Dawn. Wilson tells us that we need to find and take down a Baronet class EBE named Bigfoot, but honestly, I wasn't focusing on that because look at Wilson in this cutscene. He has what looks like an infection taking over his body. What is that? Is he infected with something, or is this just the super mechanism poisoning him, like it did with the other troops? He seems mostly normal, but he's getting more aggressive when he talks about taking down the enemies. The Canada region is a forest region, lots of trees and greenery, but there are these pink organs all over the map. It's like the aliens ingrained themselves into the soil at this point or something. I have so many questions. Anyways, we just need to beat a bunch of enemies. They're all the same, but just the new version of them. These ones focus on paralyzing us, and at the end, we run into Bigfoot. I died in my first attempt. Mainly, this was from losing my continues to the enemies before we even got there. So I went back to the base menu, crafted equipment that protected me from getting paralyzed, and headed back into this fight. This time, I had better equipment, and I was a higher level. Bigfoot is a two-headed creature with 2 large legs and a tail. He has no torso, so he looks a bit strange. For the most part, he's very easy to deal with at this stage. He tries to stomp on us based on the way he's facing. He'll jump to try and land on us, but the thing we have to look out for is his phase where he shoots his minigun out of his mouth. This thing shoots a bunch of rounds and will damage you a ton if you get caught in it. The easiest way to deal with this is either just get to the other side or just stay low when he shoots high and jump up on the organs when he shoots low. Like I said, he can be a problem if you get caught up, but mostly he's a pushover. Once we get his health down about halfway, he loses his legs and then his heads and tails start flying around. This phase is a bit more challenging, but again, not that bad. In this phase, he throws explosives, shoots his railgun and laser beams in front of him, and the scariest attack he launches is homing missiles that can cause a problem, but yet again, we can hit them back at him. So this fight isn't bad at all. As long as you have paralysis protection, you're good. Once we're close to defeating him, he flies off and we complete the mission. Harvey tells us that the mission was a blunder and that we need to chase after him. Now that that mission is over, we're given an additional 48 hours to prepare. Our next main mission will be another fight with Bigfoot. We can head to Arizona for a side mission, but the star rating is pretty high here, so I'll wait a little bit before doing that one. During this time, I crafted a new sword with higher damage and the added bonus of ice and defense down, which is basically a game changer, because we can do so much damage now because of lower defense that triggers all the time. Randomly, we get a secondary story mission. We don't have to do it, but it's cool that it's a whole new thing to dabble in. Harvey tells us that the 2nd Battalion were searching for survivors in New York, and they suddenly vanished. We're told that this is unheard of for a division of this rank to just drop communication, so we're tasked with heading into the underground network and finding out what happened. I did check out the mission, and we found out that the battalion was wiped out and some strong EBE was able to reanimate them, turning them into zombies. They're pretty easy to take down, but they spawn endlessly, so eventually you can start to take damage. The goal for this mission after finding them was to just make our way back out of the underground network. I think if you really wanted to grind levels, you could probably farm this mission for a long time. I ended up killing a bunch of them because I didn't realize I needed to leave, and I leveled up a couple times. The zombie stuff doesn't have me super interested, but I like the side story. After the mission, Cecilia tells us that something powerful was able to reanimate them and using its power make them fight. After burning through our available time, we can take on the main mission and catch up to Bigfoot again. They tell us that he's been using the environment to restore his health, and we need to get to him before he fully recovers. That's about it. This mission is a lot like the last one, travel further into Canada, taking out enemies along the way, until we find Bigfoot rooted to the ground absorbing energy. We ended up getting there too late though, and he was able to not only fully heal, but transform into a stronger version of himself. This time he has an upper body with big fists, but his head is still in the same position, meaning his head became his crotch. Oh wait, I see what they did there. Anyways, this fight is more of the same from the last fight, with new attacks from the arms. Instead of being called Bigfoot though, his new name is Gigantus. He opens with a punch to the ground using his new arms, and then has an unblockable attack where he tries to give us a 2-piece combo, but I never got caught in it because I was too quick. When he's about to perform this combo, an explanation will pop up, so it's extremely easy to avoid. This ended up being a simple fight because he's running away from us most of the time instead of actually fighting. Once you get his health down in certain spots, we can stun him and he'll just fall onto his back. And once he's on his back, we can just hammer him with attacks until he stands back up. Once we get him under half health, he'll attack us with missile attacks and a charged up laser beam that reminds me of the Kamehameha attack from Dragon Ball Z. He even has the same stance and everything. I love this. Our fatal blow at the end has us trip him and then grab him by his legs and smash him back and forth on the ground like old cartoons. I laughed out loud about this attack. It's so funny and it just shows off how strong we actually are at this point. After this mission, we're told we need to continue heading north from Harvey, and we get another recording from Wilson, where he's really starting to lose his humanity. He's just talking about how good it feels to kill the EBE and how he needs to stay strong. We have 96 hours to do whatever we want until the next main mission, so I decided to work on the zombie-related side story. And we got to fight a new boss called the Grim Reaper, which looks exactly like a Grim Reaper. He's not very strong, but summons a bunch of zombies that we need to defeat for him to appear. So essentially we have to take out all the zombies, and then he'll show up, and then we get to beat him up during that time he appears. So he's not much of a problem at first, but for some reason he makes the screen all crazy distorted. Just look at this thing, it's super weird. I don't think it really causes the game to be harder, but it's an interesting choice for sure. Once we move into the second phase, he tries to attack us with his scythe, leaving blindness orbs, and attempts to shock us. Nothing I wasn't prepared for though, so it was pretty easy. The fatal blow at the end of this fight is just a jumping sword slash, not as cool as some of the other ones. Maybe because it's a side boss. This fight was extremely easy overall, maybe because I was too overleveled at this point or something, but I was able to defeat him on my first try. Harvey tells us that because we defeated the Grim Reaper, the EBE are less active in that area, which is a good thing. After grinding through some more side missions, we're finally able to head back to the main mission. In this mission, we're tasked with heading up the coast to get to Alaska. But this time, the enemy has caught on to our plan and have sent 3 Baronet EBEs to meet us. Alaska is a new icy area where all the enemies have frost damage. For this mission, we're tasked with defeating all 3 of the Baronet EBEs in one attempt. We have 2 continues, but this mission got pretty difficult, and I lost my first 2 attempts at it. I'll talk about the bosses on my winning attempt, but I decided to grind up a little bit more before attempting this mission for the 3rd time. The only thing to note during this time was the mission in Arizona. I decided to try it, and it wasn't that bad. We have to work our way down this massive centipede-like boss. He's giant, and we need to kill all the enemies and destroy the guns in each section of his body in order to get to his head and to his arms. I did enjoy this mission, and I don't know why I waited so long to tackle it. The giant centipede boss is called Crawly Ogre, which has a human-like torso, arms, and a head, and he holds this massive sword in one hand and has claws on the other one. He'll slam down the massive sword for one attack, which is extremely easy to avoid. We just have to stay close to him and just beat him up the whole time. He shoots missiles and bombs out of his chest for another attack, and then he'll slam his body on the ground when we're too close to him. Once we make it to the second phase, he slams his sword down rapidly and swipes his claws at us. He doesn't move, so this fight ended up actually being pretty easy, and I beat him on my first attempt. The fatal blow is just super speed slashing his head until it gets cut off and explodes. I like this one even though it's a bit basic. After all that, it was finally time to attempt the main mission again. This time I had frost resistance, and I was much stronger, so I was confident heading in this time. The first boss we have to face is called the Serpent, a flying snake-like creature that has 2 reptilian EBEs on its back. The reptilian aren't anything to worry about though, and we can take them out quickly if we want to. During the first phase, that serpent flies around not really doing anything. He might try to blow fire or strike at us every once in a while, but he really doesn't do anything. Once we kill the reptilians, he will start to shoot out freeze orbs, which can be avoided easily. He'll try to attack us with his tail, shoot missiles out of his back, and even try to catch us in ice fire that he'll blow out of his mouth. He's the easiest of the 3, so this one was never a problem. We make quick work of him and head into the next boss fight with the Kraken, a somewhat humanoid body with 4 arms and a bunch of tentacles sticking out of the ground. The tentacles are the problem in this fight. We can kill them, but they always come back. When they lose all their health or are attacked, they charge back and slam down, so we need to deplete their health and then get away from them. As for the main body of the Kraken, he's pretty mobile and will quickly turn to face whatever side we're on. He attacks by slamming his claws down, swiping with his claws, calling in massive ice beams that do quite a bit of damage to us if we're caught in them. The nice thing about this attack is that red circles will appear on the ground where they're going to appear, so as long as you're not standing in them, it's pretty easy to avoid. He also shoots out ice fire out of his mouth. I guess that's a theme. But unlike the serpent's ice fire, these ones will home in on us. So the goal is to get away from them as best as we can. Once we get the Kraken into phase 2, he adds a new attack where he shoots ice beams out of his body that come out in an almost greater than sign angle. So if you're too close, it will hit you, or if you're in the air, it will hit you. So we just have to move back and stay on the ground. The fatal blow here is a quick slash, and then we can move on. I got lazy at the end of this fight, so I took way more damage than I should have. I was actually kind of upset about it. On to the final boss fight in this mission. This is the hardest one by far, and only because of how tanky this guy is. This boss is called Centaur, and it's a metal version of a centaur holding a huge sword and shield. He runs from one side of the area to the other side, and we need to either boost through him or jump over him. I feel like for this fight, the boost was the better choice. I feel like he has more attacks compared to the other two bosses, so let's go over them. The charge, as I mentioned before, is the first one. Then he'll rapidly stab his sword either straight ahead or at the ground, which one hit doesn't do much, but getting caught in the whole thing can really take your health down. He'll stomp down using his two front horse legs, causing fire eruptions to appear in a row. This reminds me of that golem boss fight we had at the beginning of the game. Just make sure you're not on that side of him and you're golden for this attack. The most annoying attack in the first phase is that he looks like he's going to slash one way and then he'll quickly turn and slash to the other side. I got caught in this so many times during this fight. It was so annoying. It really doesn't do a ton of damage, but it's annoying because it knocks you over, and that he also does this normally without jumping to the other side, so it's kind of hard to read. Then the last attack in this phase is just a leap forward with his two front legs. Not a bad one to deal with at all. Once we get him into phase 2, he launches an attack that rains down giant swords from the sky. It works like the ice beams in the Kraken fight, but there are way more of them. And they come down faster too, I think. Still, all you have to do is use the red circles to avoid them, but it's a new attack that does decent damage. I think that's all the new attacks in the second phase, just more of the same. But I wanted to mention that his shield breaks off during this section of the fight. I think it allows for us to do more damage, but I'm not completely sure. It could just be cosmetic. Speaking of damage, if this guy's defense wasn't so high, this fight would be extremely easy. He just doesn't take the most damage from our attacks, meaning that this fight takes a lot longer than it should. I wonder if I was at a higher level and had a better weapon, if we could breeze through this fight. I guess I'll never know. Anyways, I was able to take him down this attempt, and the final blow has us jump onto his sword, run up it, and then slice off his head. Simple, but effective. We run to the end of this area and complete the mission, getting an S rank. I'm starting to get pretty good at this game now too, which is a nice feeling. Harvey tells us that we did a good job, and just keep on working towards our target. Then we get another Wilson recording. I think my man has snapped now. He's talking about how he's cold, but that fighting will warm us up, it will sharpen our nerves, but also that his heart feels empty. That purple marking that has slowly been showing up is now all over his neck and face. I think he's pushed himself to the absolute limit now. He starts asking if anyone is alive, if he's even alive. I'm actually kind of worried about him. But that gets us to the 10-hour mark. Our character has reached level 43, which leveling up seems to happen so much faster now. We have a level 17 sword with defense down and ice, and a base attack stat of 57. We have a skill capacity of 162, and based on my build, I don't have anything else to really add for skills. We got an extra boost now, we can reflect attacks, and our attack stat is at 239, which is absolutely insane from 5 hours ago. There are 20 hours until our next main mission, and I think I'm getting really close to the end of the game. We're already in Alaska. I'm assuming that the final boss is coming soon. How do I feel about the game at 10 hours? I'm loving it. I'm having an absolute blast with this. I didn't think I'd be having this much fun playing it, but I am. I love getting new skills and seeing how much stronger I'm getting after every successful mission. It's just so fun. I'll come back at the 20-hour mark or at the end of the game, and I'll check back in then. I finished the game at 14 hours, so not as long as I thought the game was, but we completed it. Before I head into my final thoughts and conclusion for Earth's Dawn, let's talk about what leads up to the end of the game. After grinding through some of the side missions taking up the time, I was able to level up my equipment and character level, so that should make the next parts a bit easier. The next main mission has us heading to the energy transport plant, but we run into one of the biggest threats in the game. As we're heading through the frozen areas of Alaska, we run into this massive EBE, and his only goal is to destroy us and the ground around us. We need to make our way through the broken ice and make it to the energy plant. This level doesn't have a boss. We have to avoid these attacks from the massive EBE, while we take out ice versions of all the enemies we've defeated before. At the end, we're tasked with beating a bunch of enemies while avoiding the massive arm of this EBE. This mission ends up being pretty simple overall, just a bit on the long side. Once we make it into the plant, we end the mission, and I only got an A rank on this one, which is pretty unfortunate. Harvey tells us that the EBE that attacked us is a Duke-class EBE named Nephilim, and it's patrolling the perimeter of the transport plant. It's not trying to destroy the facility yet, but we can't take any chances, and we need to prepare to take down this beast in the next mission. Weirdly enough, we don't get any time to grind before this mission, so we're thrown right into the mix. This mission has us making our way to the roof of the plant so that we can fight Nephilim, and honestly, that's the longest part of this mission. We do have to fight 2 serpent bosses again and another fight with a centaur, which was annoying, but about the same difficulty as before. Once we get to the roof, we have an epic battle with Nephilim, and I ended up cheesing this fight a bit. I ended up staying as far away from him as possible, and then I would run in and apply poison, and then I would boost out. He did so much damage to me, so I needed to be extremely careful during this fight. I also wanted to point out that his design is disturbing. His mouth is stuck open, and he has teeth growing out all parts of his face. Nephilim has a bunch of attacks throughout the fight, but he opens with just a couple before adding more in the second phase. In the first phase, he attacks us with his long arms that catch us and do multiple hits to us, which if we're not careful will take a lot of our health away. He can also slam his other arm down and hit us, so both arms are actually pretty dangerous in this fight. He shoots missiles out of his mouth that we can hit back at him, which was doing the most damage to him at the beginning of this fight, because I was doing nothing with my sword. Once we get about a third of his health down, he will strike his arm down vertically in a row and shoot this blue beam of energy from the bottom of the arena to the top. So staying away was my best chance of surviving this one. Once we get to the second phase, he doesn't add too much more besides spitting out a bunch of bombs from his mouth and summoning a bunch of scorpion EBE enemies that walk towards us called termites. I ended up using these termites to regain my health back, and they were probably the sole reason I was able to survive while chipping away at his health. This fight was extremely long, and at the end, the fatal blow was awesome. We fly into his mouth and just slash around in his head until it explodes and we win the fight. I also made it to level 51 by the end of this mission. I was cruising my way through levels at this point. I got an S rank on this mission too, meaning I never have to do this again. Harvey tells us that we can head on to the final phase of New Dawn and prepare to launch into space with the anti-troops and invade the enemy's mother star, their home world. Harvey then gives us 120 hours to prepare for the fight. We get a short recording from Wilson and he just repeats home world, mother star, over and over again. He's lost it at this point, I think. I used these 120 hours wisely and knocked out a lot of the side missions to increase my health and attack leading up to the fight. When it was time to do the final mission, we got a cutscene of all the anti-troops getting into a spaceship and flying to the mother star. This mission is a boss rush and we have to take out 5 bosses to complete the mission. 4 bosses that we fought previously and a brand new one. The previous bosses are all level 99, but they're really not that hard to deal with since we do good damage to them now and I know the patterns. I lost to the new boss, but since I did a huge grind afterwards, I won't talk about it the first time around. This part of the game basically gives you endless time to complete side missions and level up, so I took full advantage of that. After grinding more than I think I needed to, I had a max level sword heading into the final mission for my second attempt. My character was level 56 going to this fight with a bunch of new skill upgrades, mainly in attack and health. So let's begin. The first boss is with Cerberus, level 99, the first boss in the game. Nothing new here. Then we move on to Rock Fist, level 99, the second boss of the game. Then Bigfoot, level 99, and lastly Gigantus, level 99, before falling into the final arena to fight the final boss of the game. This boss fight is with Mother, a large creature mainly because of her arms and torso. She also has a smaller torso that has an almost human body that's pregnant. In this fight, we have to jump up to the rock floating closest to her and attack the smaller torso. Once we get this torso's health all the way down, a second area of the larger torso opens up, and then we have to attack the yellow ball that's inside. That's the actual boss because in a few seconds it will close back up and we have to take the small torso's health back down. Repeat this until the health is all the way down on the yellow ball, and the boss transforms into its second phase, but first we're going to talk about phase 1's attacks. It's constantly shooting electricity at you that can paralyze you, but doesn't do much damage. It swipes at you with its arms, which is another weak attack. It shoots a blue beam out of its face that starts at the bottom and works its way up, and then the most annoying attack is the purple balls it shoots out. If these purple balls hit you, they have a chance to confuse you, and that will turn the controls backwards. Honestly, it's not that hard to deal with, but does a good amount of damage, and falling off the rock into the void causes you to lose about a third of your health. Then the last thing that it does is shoot missiles out of its fingers that we can hit back and do a lot of damage to this thing. So that's extremely important in this fight. Every time we open the chest to get to this yellow ball, we get healed a little bit, which actually helped quite a bit. Now let's move on to phase 2. After the body falls away from the yellow ball, it will float on its own with a spiked halo. Not only is this annoying because it floats under one of the platforms, but it hits like a train going at full speed. We still need to avoid the purple balls in this phase, but there are 2 of them at any given time, so that's way more difficult. The missiles are still being shot at us, and I think this was my main source of damage. This yellow ball now shoots out blue lasers in every direction that we need to circle around it to avoid. They do so much damage, and they will basically force you into falling off of the platform and into the void. Mother is still trying to hit us with that electric attack during all this too, so we can't stay in one place for too long. The good thing about this fight is that it doesn't have all that much health. We can break it down without hitting it that many times. This is the part that I died at in my first attempt, and I almost died in this attempt too. But I got lucky and was able to hit some of the missiles back, which caused the crown to break and it fell to the ground. And then we were able to boost up to the yellow ball and perform our fatal blow. In this fatal blow, our character grabs the yellow ball that is now pretty small and we destroy it, winning the fight and winning the war. We're told that we completed New Dawn by destroying the Mother and the EBE control center. We also destroyed the enemy's home planet, so there shouldn't be any more of them. Once the Mother Star was destroyed, all the EBE became weak and useless, but attempted to send everything they had at the humans on Earth. Somehow, humanity was able to fight them off once and for all. After that battle, humanity began a full-scale assault to get rid of the rest of the EBE left on Earth. We're then told that the anti-troops that were sent to the Mother Star never returned and were declared missing after the mission. However, they were all considered heroes from then on. That's it for this game. That's credits for Earthdawn. We finally completed it. After the credits, we're given another cutscene where Cecilia asks us if we enjoyed our trip to space, that our body was super messed up but they had a replacement. She then tells us that it will take some time for us to get used to our new body, but that she needs to change our memories. We're then shown a row of supercomputers with brains inside of them. She asks us if we thought that they could just flip a switch and let us go beyond our limitations. She tells us that all their resources, technology, and hopes were poured into us, and basically tells us we have no choice but to either get our memories changed or go down as a wanted man. Then we get the end on the screen, and we're back to the main menu. Now, if we were to try to continue playing our save data, we have to start with a brand new character, but we get to keep all of our weapons and skills, so that's kinda nice. We ended up just being spawns of the military this whole time. I like the twist at the end of this game. Anyways, that's it for Earthdawn. I finished the game at level 57, and I had 14 in-game hours. A nice shorter experience for an RPG. So would I recommend this? I would. This game is easy to pick up and just requires learning the patterns of the bosses, or in some cases doing a bit of grinding, but overall it was fun. The battles are fast and nothing overstays its welcome. I like the different builds the game has to offer, and there's a good amount of variety when it comes to weapon types and character customization. So if you haven't played this one, I feel good recommending it. And with that, those are my thoughts after finishing my playthrough of Earthdawn. It was really interesting seeing how my opinion changed over time as new systems unlocked, the difficulty ramped up, and the bosses started demanding more from me. I'd love to hear what you thought about the game, whether you played it back when it released or you're just discovering it now. Did you have a similar experience or did it hit differently for you? If you enjoyed this format and want to see more long-form playthrough reflections like this, let me know in the comments and tell me which JRPGs you'd like me to check out next. Liking the video really helps the channel out, and if you're into JRPG content, consider subscribing. There's more on the way. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.